Welcome to Scream Therapy. I'm your host, Jason Schreurs. In October of 2018, I found myself in the hospital, sitting across from a psychiatrist who was telling me I had bipolar. I was sent home with a bunch of medication and laid on the couch for a week. I had my iTunes library on shuffle, trying to shake the hornet's nest from my head. Ever since I was a kid, I've been using loud music as a form of therapy. Punk rock and mental health have always been connected. This podcast looks at that connection through the lens of different guests. This is Scream Therapy. Generalized anxiety, or what some people call capital A anxiety, can manifest in many different ways. Christopher Lee Lewis is a solo artist and former member of the Kinison. Christopher lives with anxiety that affects every facet of his life. One of the main tenets of cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety is a skill called check the facts. Is the threat real? While check the facts can curb unreasonable worries about the near and distant future, it's hard to practice when anxiety becomes too strong to cope with. They say depression is ruminating on the past, and anxiety is a fear of the future. The goal then is to stay in the present. Christopher says being creative and making music is one of the most effective ways to calm his anxiety and keep him in the here and now.
My name is Christopher Lee Lewis. I'm originally from Southern Illinois, but I've been in the greater Los Angeles area for a little over 20 years. I started in music very, very young. Started playing drums at like the age of 4, and then guitar and bass at 12 and 13. And I started playing shows really early on and was in punk bands from the age of 14 to 24. I was the lead singer of the band the Kinison. We were signed to LaSalle Records, which was Travis Barker's record label. We traveled the world. We did roughly 300 shows a year for about 4 years straight. Did Coachella in 2003 on a main stage. We did main stage Warped Tour 2 years in a row. Then we disbanded. Regarding personal mental health, I had my mom take me to my primary care physician. I had just turned 18, and I was explaining my symptoms of always being nervous and having stomach cramps and stomach issues. I was unable to extrapolate what it was exactly, and it's something I had dealt with my whole entire life. And he was like, "Well, you're not nervous. That's anxiety." And I was like, "Oh, that's what it is." I spent my whole primary school and junior high years and high school years dodging my problems and putting them off because I thought I was just a nervous person at all times. And I inherently saw my mom also be nervous, and maybe she didn't know what it was. Through the years, I've suffered from bouts of, I believe, clinical depression. I've been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder and then clinical depression. To be most honest with myself, the anxiety is more difficult to deal with because it's on a day-to-day basis, and there's nothing really I can do to wrangle it in if I'm experiencing it. When I have a bout of depression, I'm able to tell myself, "Hey, this is actually gonna go away. This is temporary. This is just passing." But when you wake up in the midst of an anxiety episode, which is truthfully can be daily, just about every day. And thinking that everyone is upset with you and you've done something and you just carry that burden around with you. That's at times debilitating. And in my opinion, just for myself, no amount of therapy actually helps with that, with the anxiousness. That's just who I am in like the depths of my bones, is just being an anxious person.
So, besides the obvious form of therapy, which would be playing music, which you've done for so long, you mentioned that therapy has been tough with anxiety. And I'm wondering, what kind of things have you tried and what have you found that maybe works better than others?
I have tried talk therapy numerous times. Maybe I've tried 7 different therapists over 15, 20 years. What I discovered is I found a therapist that I really liked, and I felt better going to him. One day he stopped me, like, time out here. Do you notice that it seems like you're performing when you talk to me? That this is a performance. He said, I enjoy sitting here and talking to you, and you make me laugh, and I enjoy your stories, but I don't think it's actually helping the underlying issue, that you're not taking the coping mechanisms and using them. What you're doing is you're coming here and you're like working out your comedy material, not literally, like I don't aspire to be a comedian by no means, but he said, you're coming in here and you're telling me these stories and I'm laughing and I'm enjoying them and I like you, but I don't think you're getting anything out of this. At the time, my feelings were hurt. I was like, no, I leave here and I feel better. And then I took a few weeks and I was like, oh, I think he's right, that it's not making me better. I no longer went to him because he didn't take my insurance any longer. So we had to depart. And we were both pretty upset about it. And then I found other therapists. And then the way I would start a new therapist is, hey, this is my experience in the past. Can you help me with some coping mechanisms like early on? Because I feel like if I start from the beginning, it's never ending. I don't know how therapy ends. Does it ever end? And do I have to talk about this event in my childhood? Or I have to talk about this, like, where do I start? Where do I begin? When does it end? And they're always like, well, we'll just have to just see where it goes before I can really help. And I'm like, man, I don't feel like I have time to start. And here's the thing is, I'm not discouraging anyone from going to therapy whatsoever. I think it certainly is helpful. But for myself, I end up leaving sometimes feeling worse and digging in places where I didn't want to go and then having to crash through them. Then all of a sudden, like the depression starts knocking at the door. It's like I went in because I'm anxious. I'm telling my wife, like, why are you mad at me? She's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm not mad at you. And it's like I'm digging in and then I have more to think about. And then I'm like, oh no, here's the depression. It doesn't seem to be helpful for me in the long run. In the interim, yes. Leaving that parking lot, like, whew, that was good. That felt really good. But then I have to say, like, wait, was I performing? Was I just trying to like make this person like me, not just laugh? So if you asked me, do you care if people like you? I would say no, but inherently I do.
So far, so good.
Good deal, good deal. It's just my disposition. It's just my default setting.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed about therapy that I go to, I do talk therapy as well, but it's also something called somatic therapy, which is body based, feeling your body. And sometimes it's just like you're just sitting there and feeling the sensations of your body. And is this actually doing anything? Am I just going in there and blabbing for an hour and then coming out having not done anything? And what I found is it worked almost organically. Like I realized after a while, after let's say 2 years, oh, wait a second, maybe some things are shifting. And I think that's one of the things about talk therapy, which they don't really explain to you a lot, is like you may not get a lot accomplished. It may just be that, over the course of a lot of time. So did you find a difference between when you were doing it and now?
No, no, I've focused more on physical health. I had a pretty rough winter last year. My physical health got scary bad. I noticed that when my physical health is better, obviously that impacts my mental health. But regardless, nothing helps the anxiousness. I can be at top physical health, blood work excellent, sleeping excellently, all of this. And regardless, I'm just anxious. Nothing really seems to help. Nothing works. I'm just anxious.
What does that look like, your anxiety? And you're talking about a full-fledged anxiety condition. We're not talking about someone who's anxious and is worried about something. This is
No,
anxiety, capital A. How does that look for you?
it impacts every facet of my life, meaning that the way I organize at work, the way I plan my week with my family, I try to control as much as I can, control my controllables, right, to facilitate the anxiety, which obviously doesn't help, but knowing what's coming in the pipeline does help, but it impacts my relationships. My eyes pop open and I immediately think that my daughter is mad at me for no reason. And I have to check in. Hey, is everything good? And my friends and family get annoyed by it. They're tired of me saying, are you upset with me? Are you mad at me? Did I do something? Hey, I noticed that when we crossed in the hallway today, you like gave me a weird look. What was that about? They're like, we love you, but can't we just live? It's just me constantly grinding on everyone. And Jason, I know that I am grinding, but it's in order for me to feel better for 2 minutes, I have to do those check-ins. Just want to make sure, hey, I don't mean to annoy you. Are we good?
When you're able to keep that to yourself, I would imagine it's still grinding inside your head too.
My God. Sometimes I'll ruminate on it, right? For 2 hours, they'll be like, I gotta check in. I should check in. I should check in. I should check in. No, I know it's not good for them. I know it's not good for them. But then it just comes out, and they're like, "We're fine. We're good. Chill." But it's not as easy to just chill.
What are some of the things that you do to quiet that anxiety, that pervasive thinking, and that spinning on your thoughts?
I check in with myself. I'll say, "Is this real? Did I manifest this in my head? Is it real?" And 3 out of 10 times that were. And I'll be able to say logically, no, nothing is wrong. Everything is okay. But the 7 times is when I have to I have to test the waters, and I'm sure it's at times difficult like to live with me. I'm aware of that. And I've always been like that. This isn't like a new phenomenon. This is as long as I can remember. This is just who I am.
Let's trace back to when you first got into punk rock and music and being a very anxious person at that point. You mentioned being in your teens and having a lot of struggles. Was there a shift in how you felt when you found that music scene?
Yes. I remember feeling the high of being on stage. I was been on stage essentially my entire life. I would like sell tickets to my friends in 5th grade to come see me dance. Like I'd be like, give me $1. We had a minivan. My mom would like drive around town and pick up the friends and come, and I would have a stage set up, and that helped. And the reason why is because I wasn't thinking. It was just an act of doing when you're being creative. And this is a conversation I have had with my wife, is that time for me seems so long. Time is kind of hard for me to grasp. But if I am writing a song, time doesn't exist, therefore the anxiety doesn't exist. But you can't force the creativity, right? You can't just go in your room, in your office, in your studio, lock the door, and then be like, okay, it's time to be creative, so I'm not anxious, right? That's not the way it works. It just comes when it comes. When it does, you have to jump on that and take advantage of it, not just for the fact of being creative, which we all love to be, but it's also, yeah, I guess that helps, but you can't force it. It's a reprieve when it's gifted to you, but you don't know when it's coming. And then, there's times where I'll write 5 songs in a row, like I'll just be creative, 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 creative. And then 3 weeks will go by and I'll be like, oh, I haven't written a song in 3 weeks. And then the anxiety kicks in and says, maybe that's it. You're out of songs. It's never going to come back again. You've used up all of that. And then that causes another level of anxiety. And then you pick up instrument to start fleshing something out. And then you start questioning yourself, wait, am I just doing this to get out of the funk? Or is this natural?
Yeah. And is this the same song that I just wrote last month?
Yeah,
Do I have any more ideas?
exactly.
What about going to the shows and being part of the scene? How did that affect your mental health when you were younger?
Well, there wasn't really a scene. I'm from Southern Illinois, and the town I grew up in is 1,200 people. And not only were we the only band, the closest even venue was over an hour away. Chicago is 5 hours, St. Louis, 3 hours, Indianapolis, 2 hours. So in order to play a show or to go to a show, attend a show, we had to really seek that out. We're the punk band from the cornfield, literally the cornfield. We were taking after at the drive-in and refused. We were more into anti-capitalist, newer punk, and we would like play these shows because it was the only bands really around. But we weren't part of a scene. In fact, the entire band moved to California. Then we started becoming part of a scene.
Do you still play with other folks in bands, or is it mostly just the solo stuff?
I started a band called Lewis. But back to the mental health thing, I'm not easy to be a partner with. I admittedly have to control a lot of things. I called it Lewis, thinking like I'm the singer, I write the songs. Hey, I think I'm going to be okay with this collaboration thing now. And I wasn't. I wasn't. We played shows and released records and stuff. And at the end of last year, I was having really rough mental health time. And I quit my own band, the band that I started. The announcement I made was like, I'm breaking up with myself. That's what this is. I'm breaking the band up, but I'm breaking up with myself. And I am releasing some solo records.
Clear out, I'll fall in line. We lost it all, but we'll never abide. So my heart back up.
So much material in the tank. Just right now, I'm doing everything on my own. As far as the writing, performing, recording, releasing. Tim from Sweet Cheetah is helping out on the publicity and the record label stuff. But everything else I'm doing on my own right now.
Yeah, and how is that for your anxiety?
Awesome. It does help. Not having to appease everyone. I don't want to be the way I am, but that's just how I am. I don't want to have to go to the mat for every decision just because. I don't want to have to say like the color of this not the way I want it, but it's not important to me. And then that comes off like I'm an ass. When I say like, this is how I want it, but if you can't agree to that, that's fine. I don't care. And that comes off like,
You do care.
exactly. So doing what I'm doing now is like just healthier for me and healthier for everyone. I just know that it took a toll. It shouldn't take a toll. It shouldn't drive the people around you nuts when you're writing and recording and putting out music. I don't like to use the term art. I mean, I guess that's what it is, but it's supposed to be your interpretation of things, the way you look at things, and you're supposed to feel good about it. And if you don't feel good about it, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't do it. And maybe by taking a step back, it helps the others that are involved. So this time around, I feel so much better because I'm not grinding on my other partners. It's not arguing, by the way. I'm not an arguer. I'm It's just I'm not being tedious about about everything, you know? It's been beautiful, actually.
Well, that's great. I'm happy that that's a better situation for you.
Thank you.
I do think about myself and this idea of checking the facts and thinking that I'll use your terminology, grinding on people, or that they're not liking me because I'm a certain way.
Hmm.
And I think about that imagery of walking down the street and seeing your friend coming along towards you, and they cross the street and don't even say hi, and then thinking, oh my God, what have I done? They hate me.
Yeah,
When in fact they saw, a dog across the street and they wanted to go check it out and didn't even see me.
sure.
And I'm thinking about how anxiety tells me that I'm bad, I'm not likable, that I'm doing something wrong. And part of therapy, my self therapy about anxiety, is really trying to fight against those thoughts, those skewed thoughts.
I think you hit it on the head, honestly. Dude, that's the way it has to be done. Those check-ins, the reality of things. I think you put it excellently. Kind of bring yourself into the moment and say, is this the reality? Obviously, they aren't mad at me. I've been asleep for 7.5 hours. What could I have done while I was asleep? Or what could I have done when I went to the grocery store or whatever? Yeah, checking the facts. That's the way to align. But when you're in the depths of an anxious attack or whatever they are, right? You can't think rationally sometimes, right? And even though logically you're checking the facts, the irrationality just outweighs it all.
Like you said, you're overpowered by these thoughts, and what do you do to overpower them? That's the tricky part. For me, if I kind of more embrace it and realize I know it's going to pass, I just have to do the things that I have to do to get over it and get back to a stable place, that seems to help. But it's really hard to say when you're, like you said, you're stuck in it. It's like a trap. How do you get out?
Right. And I don't know about you, but for me, my thinking brain, the logic part of my brain knows it. I'm able to recognize and acknowledge where I am, but that doesn't matter. Like you said, how do you overpower that? I'm anxious today, not because I'm talking to you, just I'm anxious today. And I took a walk to feel better. That helps a little. But logically inside my brain, I'm saying, there's nothing wrong. You're okay. You're not being threatened. You're healthy. Your family's good. Your bills are paid. Your job's fine. You've been creative lately. Everything is good. But I'm still on edge. Like I'm easily spooked. Someone would knock on the door right now and be like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" Like, what? But I know everything's okay. But it doesn't matter. Being logic is doesn't mean anything sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's a nervous system thing too for me. Like I will have thoughts. I'll wake up in the morning, first thing I'll think is, okay, someone's going to die today. It's going to be, this person's going to die. They're going to hit by a telephone pole or whatever. It's just these
Yeah.
nervous system twitches. And I'm starting to recognize the body and the mind and how the body's nervous system pings to the mind. Like, okay, so I'm feeling kind of unsettled, and all of a sudden these
Ah,
anxiety thoughts come up. And I think for me, what's been working more, and again, like there's days where I just can't do anything, nothing works, but maybe just trying to like think, like you said, this isn't real, this is just a thought. Nothing's wrong, nothing's going to happen. But then knowing that this body stuff is going on at the same time, being aware of it, doesn't change how awful it feels, but at least being aware.
sure. In the beginning, you mentioned a particular type of therapy.
Somatic therapy.
So you sit there and you see how you check in with your body.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times I end up just blabbing for an hour and realizing, oh, shoot, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
For me, I just close my eyes and the therapist asks me where I'm feeling uncomfortable, like let's say it's in the stomach, and then you just feel that for a while and whatever comes up comes up. Sometimes like stuff will come up around trauma and I'll actually talk about traumatic memories and events. But sometimes it's just like feeling it, knowing, being in touch with the body seems to dissipate the mind stuff. And sometimes I'm just like, this is stupid, it's not working. But often after even a few months, I'll be like, oh, wait a second, I'm actually dealing with that a little bit better. It's almost like a subconscious therapy in some ways. It's not just like trying to talk it through with CBT, which is, cognitive behavioral therapy, or more like concepts and modalities and thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Yeah.
It's almost like a course, right? Like a school course. Whereas somatic just feels more like you're trying to work stuff out within your system.
I would be open to trying that. First of all, I didn't know it existed. And my anxiety does manifest. I'm sure everyone's does, but mine does manifest in my body. Today, I feel it in my chest. I kind of feel it in my calves a little bit. I'd be curious and interested to see where that goes. That's really interesting. Thank you for bringing that up.
That was my conversation with Christopher Lee Lewis, christopherleelewis.bandcamp.com. For more episodes of Screen Therapy, go to screentherapyhq.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Big news, the Screen Therapy book is available now. Screen Therapy, A Punk Journey Through Mental Health, tells my story and the stories of others who use punk as a catalyst for mental health. Like this podcast, it links the community-minded punk scene with the mental wellness of the punks who belong to it. To order the book, go to screentherapyhq.com. For merch, check out the newly opened store at screentherapyhq.com/store. And for even more designs, check out Scream Therapy on TeePublic. Okay, enough promoting. It's time for some thanking. Thank you for listening to Scream Therapy. Doing this podcast and talking to folks about punk rock and mental health has been a crucial part of my own mental stability, and it means so much to me that you're out there listening. Screen Therapy is created in the Cathet region of coastal British Columbia, Canada, on the traditional territory of the Tla'amin Nation. Contact me at screentherapyhq.com or email me at screentherapypodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Let's talk about punk rock and mental health. Until next time, take care and be well.